This story was shared with me by a man living in South Africa. He said while I was 16, I was only a little skinny boy who had no any form of formal education. His dad gave him advice to work as a conductor in the bus parks, since he did not have any effort or power to carry the heavy loads that were the most paying at the time. He said it only required you to be a talkative guy who could banter with people for every driver to like you and put you in their conductoring seat. He took his dad's advice and at first went to Bakara Market in Somalia. That's where I got the first car to hire me as a conductor, he says. He said, I remember a driver who ran into wrangles with his conductor called me and asked if I had done the job before. I replied, no, it is my first, but I have been seeking this job for a while now. He told me to take a seat and would only hire me if he liked my service that day. That's how I started the conductoring job, he recalls. Indeed, when you're faced with unpleasant situations, you do anything for a little bit of dime. When I was settling in for the night, he gave me $7.13. This driver was really a good guy. For those of you who know, there's two kinds of services buses do. There's times they load and offload from a port, and there's times they just drive by the road pavements to find potential clients who would hop in. One morning while we were picking up people walking on foot, among the people I picked up was a student, a girl who was doing her university in that neighborhood at the time. When we moved her to her final destination, she handed over the fare to me. I needed $9.98 from her, but upon close inspection, I realized she had handed me just that butt, and it was also a dollar bill, a $100 bill. I slammed the door of the bus as hard as I could to trigger the driver to stop the car. I yelled and ran after her. When she turned, she angrily said to me, I gave you your money. Why are you following me while shouting? Are you not certain this is embarrassing me? Darling, and the money you gave was a dollar bill. Please have it back, I replied. Pleased with my act of kindness, she replied, Thank you, brother. I was going to use this to pay for my tuition fee. My uncle gave it to me. Anyway, the driver asked what had happened and why I ran after her. After explaining, he got terribly pissed about how I had let loose a golden opportunity that passed by. How many days would we work that money? He yelled at the peak of his voice. One day, I can't remember how many days have passed since the encounter with the girl. I happened to see the girl at the same place, and we picked her up in the same way. Again, while she reached the same destination, she handed me the fare, and afterward she asked, Darling, can I ask for a favor? Could you please give me your phone number? At the time, I did not hold a phone, so I replied, While I do not have a phone, my employer, the driver, does have one, and we walk along pretty much most of the time. So I gave her the driver's number. Time moved on. I was just hustling, the guy in South Africa says. And he added that he didn't receive any calls from her, and neither did he ask the driver for any new unknown calls. Multiple weeks later, the same thing happened. She's there, standing tall and pretty, waiting for a bus to take her to the university. After offboarding, she told me about how she called me multiple times and how he told her I wasn't with him. So we agreed she would call me after sunset that day. While asked about why he didn't pass the phone over to me during the numerous times she called, my driver replied heartlessly, I was afraid she was going to disrupt us from our little business. Spoiler, she eventually will. Now during the phone call, it was a pretty chill one. The first question she asked me was why I didn't own a phone and how a small end cell phone was only $12. I asked her, Are you aware of the value $12 has in my life? Long phone call cut short, she volunteered to buy me a cell phone. 3 days later, she called to tell me that she had written my name on it and left it at a shop near the pickup point where I usually picked her up. She was the first whose number was ever saved to my phone, because I honestly didn't even know how to save a contact in a BlackBerry Nokia phone. Yes, I was that illiterate. This girl, aware of my day job, used to only call me when the night fell. She was not a fan of the job I was working, so she suggested that I work at her uncle's shop instead. This is what I told coworker. You're my brother. You've truly helped me in the toughest of times, but as a whole boy figure for a family with 2 recently deceased sisters and financially struggling parents, I regret to inform you that I must quit this job, and I remain truly grateful to you. The following month was indeed a good salary month. I was given a decent amount of pay at the end of that month. One day, she made a phone call to arrange a face-to-face interaction for both of us. When I arrived, she told me about how good of a character I appeared to her and how she used to think about me pretty much most of the time. She finally proposed to formalize a relationship between the two of us. I told her about how I was not a right match for her, given my illiterate hustler background. Seriously, she was a lady who passed through the formal education system, and I couldn't write my name. I couldn't save her contact address in my phone book. We were truly not at the same level. In the following days, she began to get me breakfast, get me dinner from her home, buy me stuff, and so on. After consulting with my dad, I finally agreed to her proposal. When we speak in lame terms, that was the girl that taught me how to love. The girl who taught me to laugh or even speak out. She taught me happiness. 2 years later, after she completed her university studies, a man in Sweden proposed to her, and the whole family agreed unanimously, except for her sister. She said, "Look at this poor boy whom you implanted love in. You taught him everything. Don't accept a marriage proposal from that man, your maternal uncle's son living in Sweden. It is likely that he might divorce you a few months into going back abroad." She was given every offer, like being given a permanent residency abroad, a decent job, but she refused to take them. Luckily for both of us, the family finally agreed to our marriage. After my employer, the uncle, convinced them pretty nicely. The uncle did 2 things. One is he funded our whole marriage thing. He covered pretty much most of the things. And 2, he increased my wage by a little over 53%. Fast forward to 2 years later, it's me and her living a pretty chill life. 2 kids happily married, When all seemed, well, tragedy struck. Happened, and the uncle sadly passed on. Upon his passing, the income from his shop kept deteriorating since he was the man who was keeping everything on the move. A couple of weeks later, his shop, my main source of income, was sold, and some of his other assets too. As part of the inheritance, my wife was given $4,700. She said to me, "My life, if we keep this money in this town, it would soon evaporate." What do you think if you go to South Africa, where there's more job opportunities with it, and change our life for the better? And listener, this is where the whole story gets tragically sad. The man said that he was supposed to be departing from an airport in Kenya, so he entered Kenya, and while there for a few days, and remaining with a few days to set off this fateful evening, he happened to encounter a Somali lady who looked tired and overburdened, carrying a lot of luggage. When you look at her lightly, it becomes obvious that she was exhausted and weighed down by this heavy luggage. She appeared to be coming from abroad and struggling with her heavy luggage. Out of brotherly, fellow Somali-rooted kindness, I offered to carry it with her up to the parking lot, he remembers. A decision I regret for life, he noted. This brother, now in South Africa, goes on to say that they did later talk a bit and open up with this stranger. He did share that he had left 2 kids back home and a wife, and how he was headed to South Africa in search of jobs. This lady showed sincere appreciation for his kindness and asked him to meet with her the following day at a certain place, which was her home, he would realize later. She stressed how she really wanted to reciprocate his act of kindness and couldn't let him go without paying his price back. She brought him some sweet foods she had prepared, some juice, a sarong-like wrap, the traditional Somali garment worn by men, and a vest. I stayed there like a man in his home. I was not going anywhere. I wasn't the guy who left 2 little babies and a loving wife in Somalia. This is where my life began. He recalls, "I wake up to this lady, hear only her voice, and if I'm to leave, she's walking beside me. The thought of the parents I left behind, the wife, the kids, all never crossed my mind. I'm just in this house. I'm being managed here. She goes out to work, comes back later, and does the same thing over and over again." After a fortnight with this new lady, she brought home 3 men. She said, "On this day, we are going to have to tie knots and be officially wedded husband and wife." But as I would realize later, I was only a little puppet of her. Whatever she tells me to do, I would without question. Sometimes people would come home, and then she would tell me to go into a room and not to come out until she said so. I would comply because I was not in charge of my mind and thoughts, at least. Time is flying. I was with this lady for 5 years. 5 years of not remembering my family and relatives. There's nobody I can remember but her. This new lady was my whole world in a sense. After 5 years, somehow I began to recollect some of the thoughts from the past. When she's away, I begin questioning myself. Where's my family? My wife, my daughter, my son, my dad? But when she comes inside, there's absolutely nothing I can utter. My mind begins to function while she's away. When she enters the household, I can't talk. I'm quiet. 6 months added to this 5 years. Every day when she comes, I can't utter out the words or questions I prepared to ask her. 7 months after those 5 years, she called me into the living room, looking visibly disturbed. She said, "I was told before that after a couple of years, he would begin to think about his family and relatives, and at last he would leave you and leave you in the worst of ways. I don't want that to happen." She went on to say how she was willing to let him go, finally confessing to have exploited the unseen world to influence his thoughts and make him a loyal dog. Well, in a sense, she apologized to what had happened and suggested they should part ways. After realizing all that had happened, how she bewitched him and stuff, he explained how the money he was using was even the inheritance of his wife. She said, "Like, yes, I would have loved to have you even longer, but after much reflection, I realized I was beginning to feel the same pain as the wife and children who had been waiting for so long. So as such, I'm going to fund the money you'll be using to travel to South Africa." Mind you, this is a little under 6 years from his flight. He replied, "I don't even know the people I knew yesterday. The ones who arranged my flight, I don't have their numbers anymore. Buy me a phone and give me that money and I'll be gone." At last, I entered South Africa and I got a job in an effortless way. Then I decided to call my dad, he says. "My mom picked up this phone number having a South African landline. She said with a grieving voice, 'Oh, Mom, were you alive all this time? We sent our condolences a long time back because we were told you had long been gone. We thought you passed on. Today your wife is married to another man. Your dad is on his deathbed and he is not even in position to talk to you over the phone.' When my ex-wife was given the toll line, she broke down. 'Are you alive? Where were you all these years?' I replied to her that 5 years and 7 months I was more like a jerry can without a life, that I was being manipulated. In awe, she asked, 'What do you mean exactly?' I explained in tears right from the day I offered to help a woman who looked tired and burdened with a lot of luggage to that day. She also broke down and explained how after years of unrelenting pain and suffering, she received a call from the man living in Sweden who proposed to marry her before she got married to him. He told her that he was aware her husband passed on a few years back and she was grieving with 2 little children and that he wanted to still give her a chance and take her in marriage, that he would raise them like his own. He said he wouldn't propose the second time if she didn't have kids even in that tough time, but only considered it because she was widowed with 2 kids. The man asked his ex-wife if she had had babies with him, to which she replied, 'No, we are married for 9 months now and we have no babies yet.' Dear viewer, we are nearing the end of the story about a man who one day did a favor for a woman and in another was told to come back the following day, only to not recall for 5 freaking years. Our next story features an even more painful story. 2 beings meant for each other yet parted by seas, one in the land of castles and cathedrals and another in the land of temples and pagodas, and in the end it is really painful. I won't spoil it here, just hit subscribe to this channel and then you'll listen to it uncut, unfiltered. This next one is indeed special. Please subscribe to my channel, Calera Nove, for more true-based stories, ones that will touch your heart, ones that will make you happy, and ones I intend for the community to learn from. I'm always ready to present to the community a painful story that has happened to you or a joyful one resonating in your heart. Share yours with us in the email address on the channel description. That aside, do you think the marriage happened? Do you think she left him again for this other man? I will reply to you in the comment and tell you how it actually went down. Please comment. Thank you for watching.